Mundo Ejecutivo presenta.
Hola amigos, bienvenidos a una ocasión más de su programa 18 minutos. Soy Francisco Rodríguez Aguirre, presidente de Smart Speakers, el principal buró de conferencistas de Latinoamérica, y me acompaña mi amigo Mauricio Reynoso.
Como siempre, un privilegio, mi estimado Paco, y con una muy alta expectativa sobre la conversación que les tenemos preparadas hoy a nuestros amigos.
Tenemos un gran invitado que me voy a permitir presentarles. Él es Duncan Wardle. Él fue el vicepresidente de Innovación en una de las compañías más innovadoras a nivel mundial, de Disney. Ocupó este cargo del 2011 al 2017 y actualmente es asesor y consultor y conferencista en estos temas. Duncan, it's a pleasure to have you here with us. How are you, Duncan?
It's perfect timing because we're in between the games right now.
Exactly.
in the World Cup. Great. Duncan,
how do you define creativity? Let's start from the beginning, if you don't mind, Duncan. How do you define creativity versus innovation?
This one's easy. Creativity is the ability to have an idea. We can all do it. Innovation is the ability to get it done. That's the hard part.
Wow.
Great.
I don't know why I was very complex in my mind with these two concepts. Very easy to understand.
And Duncan, how can you become more creative?
By behaving like a child. If I were to ask you, close your eyes and think about where are you and what are you doing when you get your best ideas. All I hear people say is, I'm in the shower, I'm bicycling, I'm jogging, I'm falling asleep, I'm waking up. Nobody ever says at work, ever. Well, why are we always somewhere else when we have our best ideas? Well, if you picture yourself in a verbal argument with somebody, you're angry at each other, you're screaming at each other, you turn to walk away from that argument, and the moment you turn away, you come up with the perfect comeback line, the one line you wished you'd used during the argument, but you never did. It always came to you just as you walked away, or you step in the shower, you have the big idea. Because when you're in an argument, your brain is moving at 1,000 miles an hour. When we're in the office, we're doing emails, we've got meetings, and we hear ourselves say, I don't have time to think. And yet, the split second you gave yourself time to think, you step in the shower, big idea, walk away from the argument, killer one-liner. How do I get there on demand? By being playful. And I'll show you why, if I can find it. Playfulness. What is the importance of playfulness at the right time? When we hear ourselves say, I don't have time to think, you're in the brain state and your brain is whirring away. You're in the brain state science calls beta. I call it busy beta, where the door between your conscious and subconscious brain is firmly closed. When that door is closed, you only have access to your conscious brain. If you Google how much percentage of my brain is conscious, 13%. You're working with 13% of your capacity of your brain when you're in the office at work. And you hear yourself say, I don't have time to think. 87% of your brain is subconscious. Every innovation you've ever seen, creative problem you've ever solved, is all back here to help you. But when the door's shut, you don't have access to it. By being playful like a child, I run energizers. They're 60-second exercises. I'm listening for laughter. What am I doing? I'm metaphorically placing you back in the shower where you are when you have your best ideas and opening the door between your conscious and subconscious brain. How do we get there? By being playful.
Right. And talking about this, I was wondering about your examples on the shower, etc. Could you tell us something about which obstacles do you foresee when trying to be creative and how to surpass them?
Yeah, there's, let's see which way. When we surveyed people, we surveyed 5,000 people at Disney and asked them what were the barriers to being more innovative. Number one, I don't have time to think. Number two, fear of failure. We've got quarterly results to meet. Number three, we say we're consumer and client centric, but we measure by quarterly results, not our relationship with our consumer. Number four, our ideas seem to get stuck, diluted or killed as they move through our organization. And number five, everybody had a very different definition of innovation and creativity. But in truth, the biggest barrier to innovation is not time to think. The biggest barrier to innovation is our own experience and our own expertise and our river of thinking. The more expertise and the more experience we have, the more reasons we know why the new idea won't work. But we are being challenged in a post-pandemic world. Nobody's going back to business as usual. We're all going back to business as unusual. We must get out of this river faster and faster and faster. Now, A lot of people are going to tell you, I work in a very heavily regulated industry, therefore I can't innovate. Well, I don't believe that to be true. So, what if there was a tool that enabled you to metaphorically break the rules of your industry without actually breaking them to come up with new ideas? This was created by Walt Disney for the film Fantasia in 1940. You simply write down the rules of your challenge and then ask, what if those rules no longer applied? So Walt wrote down, he was very frustrated, he wanted to pump mist into the theatre and heat, and the theatre owner said, no, that's not the way we do it here. We tried that last year. That won't help us hit our quarterly results. So Walt wrote down the rules of going to a theatre. I must sit down, I must be quiet, it is dark, I must go at a set time, I, Walt Disney, cannot control the environment. And so, step one, list the rules of your challenge without thinking about them. Step two, pick one. Walt chose the environment and he asked the most provocative, audacious what-if question. So Walt said, what if I could control the environment? Well, he couldn't. He didn't own the movie theatres. But besides that, wasn't audacious enough. The more audacious your what-if question, the further out of your river of thinking you'll get. So Walt said, wait a minute, what if I take my movies out of the theatre? Don't be daft, Walt. They're two-dimensional. They'll fall over. What if I make them three-dimensional? Well, how are you going to do that, Walt? Well, what if I put people in costume and we could have princesses and cowboys? Yeah, but Walt, you can't have cowboys standing next to Cinderella. People wouldn't be immersed in her story. Well, what if I put them all in a different themed land? Oh, wait a minute, what if I called it Disneyland? Now, this tool also gave birth to Netflix. The founder of Netflix was very fed up of paying late fees in Blockbuster Video. So step one, he listed the rules of the industry. I must drive to a physical store, go during opening hours. They have a very limited stock. I can only take out 3 at a time. I must return that video. I had to be kind and rewind it, and I had to pay a late fee. Those are the rules. List them. In 2005, he simply said, what if there was no physical store? An absurd idea, surely. Or was it? YouTube was 6 months old, streaming amateur content. So he said, well, wait a minute, what if I just did a deal with the major movie studios? I'll stream professional content. Nobody would have to drive to a store. I'll be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'll have an unlimited stock. Everybody will get the one they want opening day, weekend. Nobody will have to return it or rewind it. I'll cut the fee off at 24 hours. Nobody pays a late fee. I'll call it Netflix. I'll take it to Blockbuster 5 times. They'll turn me down 5 times. And I'll take them out of business in less than 5 years. Now, it's easy for organizations to say, well, that's Netflix and Disney. We can't do that. This tool works for everybody. There was a very small company with only 26 employees in Great Britain in the late 60s and early 70s that made glasses that we drink out of, and they found too much breakage and not enough production when the glasses were being packaged and shipped. They went down to the shop floor, observed the process, wrote down the rules. 26 employees, cardboard boxes, 12 glasses to a box, separated by corrugated cardboard, glasses wrapped individually in newspaper, employees reading the newspaper. So somebody asked the most provocative what-if question of all, what if we poke their eyes out? Well, that's against the law and is not very nice. But because they had the courage to ask the most provocative what-if question, the person sitting next to him immediately got out of her river thinking, he said, well, wait a minute, why don't we just hire blind people? So they did. Production up to 26%, breakage down 42%, and the British government gave me a 50% salary subsidy for hiring people with disabilities.
Thank you, Duncan. How do you implement a culture of innovation in a company?
We tried 4 models at Disney. Model number 1, I hired an outside innovation consultancy, but they're not going to show you how they do what they do, or you wouldn't hire them again, and they're never around for execution. So it gets you so far. Model number 2, we created an innovation team. The challenge with creating an innovation team is like, if you have a legal team or a sales team or a marketing team, nobody outside of legal does legal. If you have an innovation team, you've subliminally told everybody else in your organization you don't have to innovate. Then we tried an accelerator program where we'd bring in young tech startups with an interesting piece of technology. We would take a 50-50 stake in their piece of business. We could help them scale it, because Disney's good at scaling. They helped us bring products and services to market much quicker than we normally would. But we were still only touching a tiny, but we had failed our overall goal of how might we embed a culture of innovation into everybody's DNA. So I set out to create a toolkit with 3 principles. Make innovation less intimidating and more accessible to normal people. Make creativity tangible for the people who hate ambiguity and grey. And far more importantly, make it fun. Give people tools they choose to use when you're not around. That's when you know you're changing the culture.
Duncan, talking about this, now that you are talking about how to empower people in our organizations, etc., what could you be your recommendation for leaders to really foster creativity among the organization within the culture they may have?
Yep, well, let's try. I'll show you another one. The naive expert. I would suggest to your leaders, when you have your next leadership meeting, don't just have leaders in the room. You're all over 50. You don't get the future. The younger people do. They're closer to augmented reality. They're closer to virtual. They're closer to the metaverse, but they're not at the leadership meeting. And they will play the role of the naive expert. Well, who or what is a naive expert, and why should you have one in every meeting you run? They are somebody who doesn't work in your line of business, that will ask the silly question that you're too embarrassed to ask in front of your colleague, to throw out the audacious idea ungoverned by your rivers of thinking. They will not solve the challenge for you, but they will stop you thinking the way you always do and give you permission to think differently. And I'll give you a first-hand example. I don't know if you guys, I know you've got paper. You got any pens with you?
Yes.
Excellent. So I'm going to give you a drawing exercise. So we were designing a new retail dining and entertainment complex for the Hong Kong Disney Resort. In the room, I had 12 white male American architects, the Disney Imagineering team. So I invited in my naive expert as a young female Chinese chef. The naive expert is not there to solve the challenge. They are there to ask a silly question or a big idea ungoverned by your river of thinking. So I'm going to name the same object that I gave the Imagineers to draw that day, and I'm going to ask you to draw it. I'm only going to give you 7 seconds to draw it. I'm going to draw one down here. Please, would you draw a house? Go. 7.
You know, I don't have a pen, but I will trust in my Mauricio.
4, 3, 2, 1. Share your genius. Let's take a look. Come on, what's your house look like? Let's take a look. Can we see your house?
Mauricio is going to show it because I don't have a pen.
Yeah. I don't know if it can be seen, but...
There we go. So everybody draws the same house. Why? Because we all jump into our river of thinking of what a house should look like, because that's all of our expertise and experience says that's what a house should look like. And all of the Imagineers drew what you and I did, except one person in the room, the naive expert. She was a young female Chinese chef. She drew dim sum architecture. Never occurred to her to draw the house the same way that you and I would. On the way out the door, somebody put a post-it note over her drawing, which simply said, distinctly Disney, authentically Chinese. 7 years later, the strategic brand position that guided the entire design of the Shanghai Disney Resort, distinctly Disney, authentically Chinese. But here's the biggest learning point for all leaders across the organization. Diversity isn't something you should do because you think you should do it. Diversity is innovation. If somebody doesn't look like you, they don't think like you. And if they don't think like you, they can help you think differently.
Great. Duncan, what do you call the concept of expansive questions and deductive questions?
Oh, expansive thinking, that's how children think, right? Reductive thinking, that's how we think. Children are good at playfulness, curiosity, imagination. We are good at strategy and planning, and both are required on an innovation project, but not at the same time. And so, one of the most important things, we talked about playfulness. The other one is curiosity. The number one question your small child asks you every single day is why? Because they are after what's known as the core consumer truth, the insight for innovation, because they know you lied the first time. If we were only to rely on data and I were to survey you and ask you why you go to Disney on holiday, the number one response I'll get is we go for the new attractions. Well, that would inform me to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on a capital investment strategy. But if I pause for a moment at childlike, not childish, and say, well, why do you go for the new attractions? Well, no, actually, I like the classics. Why do you like the classics? I like It's a Small World. Why do you like It's a Small World? I remember the music. Why the music? Well, it was my mum's favourite ride. Why is that important to you 20 years later? I take my daughter now. Boom, there's your insight for innovation. It has nothing to do with the capital investment strategy whatsoever, and everything to do with that person's personal memory and nostalgia, and that is a communication campaign, not a capital investment strategy. But then we go to school, and the first thing we're told to do is stop asking why, because there's only one right answer. As you seek to employ people in the next decade, artificial intelligence is estimated to take away between 20 and 30% of our workforce and the jobs that we do today. How will you compete in that decade? How will we compete? What skill sets should we be looking for? Ask the artificial intelligence experts what they believe will be the most employable skill sets of the next decade, and they'll tell you the ones that will be the hardest to program. Then ask them what they are. Tell you the ones with which you were born. You never played with a toy, you played with a box. We have an amazing intuition. You have 100 billion neurons here and 120 million neurons here. We used to ask why again, and we all have an amazing imagination. I dream England will win the World Cup this year. But whilst these most certainly were not the most employable skill sets of the last decade, they most certainly will be the most employable skill sets of the decade ahead, because they will be the hardest to program.
Great, great. Now, following your ideas, how could you describe experience versus product?
That one's easy. All right, here we go. Come on.
I like that one.
How much would you pay me for that?
10 pesos.
Yes, 10 pesos as well.
Okay. Bottle of Coca-Cola, 10 pesos.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What if it came from Tatooine? How much would you pay?
Oh, yes.
Maybe
then-
50 pesos, 55
no,
pesos.
perhaps 100 pesos.
Or 100.
This is a product. This is an experience. Why is this so important? Because here comes Generation Z. And everybody here already knows the biggest challenge facing you right now is Generation Z. Why? Because they don't want to work for you. Because they're driven by experience. You're driven by quarterly results. And so why is experience so important? Walt Disney understood experience better than anybody else. When he built the theme parks, if I were to ask you to name the most successful retail shopping malls on the planet per square foot, you would not think to mention the top 6. Disneyland, Walt Disney World, Disney Paris, Hong Kong, Tokyo, and Shanghai are the most successful retail shopping malls on the planet per square foot. Why? Because Walt created experience first. Now, before Universal Studios bought the Harry Potter franchise, they were the hard steel ride guys. Disney was the immersive experience. And a Coca-Cola in Universal Studios at the time was 75 cents. Today, sir, to you, that's a butterbeer. It's $8.50 plus tax. Would you like the souvenir mug? Have a nice day. But we think we can't create experiences for our consumers. You will be able to in a very short period of time. Here comes augmented reality. It'll come between us and the metaverse, which is further out. These big VR headsets will be a pair of reading glasses by Christmas next year. They're going to be $150 a set. Now, so if you want Tinkerbell to pop out of your Happy Meal in Mexico City and say Feliz Cumpleaños or Adrianita on her birthday, that's 2 years away. So we haven't been able to spend millions of dollars on a capital investment strategy. So, for example, right, let's go back to Rayados. My family will be so proud of me. Today, the Rayados Stadium probably sits, I don't know, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 people. But no. Johnny in Cairo 2 years from now will pay $1 to sit on the back row, $5 to sit on the halfway line, and $50 to sit on the bench next to the players. That's less than 3 years away. Now you put artificial intelligence on top of that. Now I'm sitting in the Rayados Stadium, but I didn't bring my shirt today. Oh no, I need the stripes. So I've got my glasses on. The store alerts me that the shirt is there, available right now. And I click once to walk in and pick it up. It's already prepaid. And I click twice. I have it sent to my house. Thanks very much. 3 years away. And augmented reality will enable all of us to create fully immersive experiences for our consumers and our employees. Product experience.
Great, Duncan. You know, the time has come up, our 18 minutes, but thank you very much for such a great ideas.
Thank you very much indeed. And good luck in the rest of the World Cup, whoever's left in it. And I'm going to go watch England play on Sunday.
Good luck too.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Mundo Ejecutivo presentó